Hello, everyone. This is Henny Espinosa of Justice Foundation, and we're so delighted today that we are joined by Travis Snyder, who is a Marine Corps veteran who's literally walking the walk to help other veterans in need. So, thanks for joining us from Michigan, Travis.
Thank you for having me, honey. Happy to be here.
So, Travis, let's talk a little bit about your background and what prodded you to join the Marine Corps.
Well, I joined a little bit later than most people would have joined. Rather than join right after high school, I waited a few years after, well, into adulthood really, and I got to a point in my early 20s where I was feeling rudderless and without direction, and could have used a good kick in the rear. And so, joining the Marine Corps was something I always wanted to do when I was younger, and I just felt like it was the time to, make the jump and go for it. And so, when I was 24, I enlisted, and I figured if I was going to do anything in the Marine Corps, it was going to be the rough work and the tough work. So I joined the infantry and went that route.
So, tell us about your experiences. Were you deployed? What was the deployment like? What did you witness? What did you experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So my first handful of years, I was actually in the reserves. I had the intention of going back to school, and I still wanted to work, and was at a position or in a position in my life where I still wanted to pursue like putting together a family and career and everything. So I joined the reserves, still trained full time, well, part time, full time. Um, and then my last year, we actually were blessed with the opportunity to serve in Afghanistan. So we had some training to do in northern Michigan for a season, had some training to do in Pennsylvania, and then North Carolina for a few months
Mm.
before we finally shipped over to Afghanistan. And while we were over there, we had the mission of advising, assisting, and training the Afghan army, as well as Afghan police, and their efforts against the Taliban forces.
Mm.
And so for 7 months, we had different missions, whether it had been serving as guardian angels for our own counterparts, SOCOLAT missions, which was inspecting and taking care of Afghan personnel and vehicles that came onto base, making sure that they weren't dangerous to us.
Mm.
And then also flightline security, where we would just take care of any convoys that need to go out to the flatline to prepare for takeoff from our airfield,
Mm.
as well as just monitor the flights that were coming in as well and provide security.
Mhm.
So we came home in May of 2018, and about a month later, my time in service was up, and I do miss it, but you kind of can tell, and you just know when it's time to move on to other things in your life. And so for me, I was ready to hang up my pack and
Mhm.
put my boots on the shelf and call it a day.
Mhm. But in terms of the brotherhood that you experienced there, how would you describe that for us? And how important is it to have a strong brotherhood when you're doing really very important and tough responsibilities out there?
Yeah. So when you're doing a lot of work in a combat zone, or when you're even doing training, preparing for a deployment, throughout my time, whether it been the deployment or training in the reserves, there's definitely moments in training that are um, less exciting than others,
Mm.
less fun than others. But it's that camaraderie and that brotherhood and that tightness and closeness that really pulls you through some of the less fun moments.
Mhm.
And so, like, one example I can give you took place in northern Michigan, probably a few years into my time in service, and we were had a training weekend where it just rained all 4 or 5 days from dawn to dusk and overnight, and it did not let up. And the last night we were there, we were supposed to be driving back to uh, our home base, our drill center, and there was some logistical issues, and we got stuck out there for an extra night. No big deal. So we get everything set down for the night, get ready to camp out, and we all go to bed. And within hours, it was downpouring and
Mm.
just storming all over us and everything. It was, looking back, we laugh about it now, and
Mm.
it's just one of those things where it's like if we had each other to laugh it off and to like embrace the, we call it embrace the suck, but
Mm.
like um that's just a very fond way of saying, like, you just take the situation and really embrace it and just make the most of it.
Mhm.
And because I had my brothers there with me, and because I had that relationship and that closeness with them, it's definitely what made those situations all the much better. You know, we're built to handle any kind of weather, any kind of situation, and to take the worst and make the most of it. But that doesn't come without having that camaraderie. And so when I talk to a lot of guys now of all generations, whether it been my own guys or my generation, Vietnam era guys, Desert Storm era, men and women, the thing that we all have in common is that we miss the camaraderie the most. Now, we might miss a job as well, and we might miss the sense of purpose and belonging, but it's that camaraderie and that tightness that we miss more than anything else once you take off from that season of your life.
Travis, let's talk about kind of the struggles that a lot of our servicemen really experience now when you get exposed and you witness so many horrific things and just, go through a lot. PTSD is really still such a pressing issue among our veterans and our servicemen. How has this affected you and the people that you know?
So when we, on the personal side, leading up to the deployment, we have our annual training, and we have those checks in the box that we need to take care of. Part of that training does involve training for mental health and how to identify when we ourselves or somebody close to us is struggling mentally or emotionally, and maybe expressing hints of suicidal tendencies. But that training doesn't really fully prepare you for the moment when you get that phone call that you really did lose one of your own. And so for our unit, about a year after we got home, we lost one of our guys to suicide. And him and I had the chance to get to know each other a little bit in North Carolina. We were suite mates in the barracks and had some conversations. His unit or his platoon, I should say, was in a more remote location than the rest of us during our time in Afghanistan. So didn't get to talk to him a whole lot after that. But I can tell you that this gentleman knew his job well, took care of his Marines. He was a hard worker, and everybody has very fond memories of him and who he was as a human being. And when we lost him to suicide, it was a shock for all of us. And it was also an opportunity for us to reach out to those of us that were obviously still here and to check in with each other genuinely and listen with intent and make sure that we weren't on the brink of losing anybody else. It's hard enough losing one, let alone more. So there was a lot to learn in that season for all of us, and it was just heartbreaking. But leading into advocating, there was more lessons to learn with that too. Didn't fully anticipate the magnitude of the effect of the suicide and epidemic, and like I said, there's a lot of lessons to learn there as well.
So you turned, you guys were obviously grieving about the loss of this friend, but you took it a step further, because since we're talking about advocacy, you were actually this prodded you, this pushed you, this moved you to really take action.
Absolutely.
How did you go about that? And kind of take us back to that moment when you were like, I want to do something about this and actually raise awareness on this issue.
For sure. Yeah, literally took the extra step. But I was in a season of my life where I was going through some transitions. That first year, so after our deployment to Afghanistan, I was still trying to figure out my own path and what I wanted to do afterwards. I knew I wanted to finish school and pursue a career and everything and settle down and rebuild my life. But, some things didn't quite go right that first year or so. And so before I moved back to my hometown, I found myself wanting to do some traveling and some adventuring. And I was actually doing some hiking in where I was living at the time, and being the smart aleck that I am, I was thinking to myself, well, I can just go backpack across Michigan's Upper Peninsula, and then I was like, well, I'll just backpack around the Lake Michigan, and it clicked. And I was like, well, why don't I just go backpack around Lake Michigan? And I've never seen the whole lake all around between the UP and Wisconsin, and I think the furthest run I'd been was Chicago, which I'm only a few hours from right now. But it was that evening that I was back home talking to another buddy of mine, and kind of got the idea to commemorate the brother that we lost to suicide, and also reach out to others who were dealing with similar obstacles in their lives. And with the help of a few friends, got the suggestion to kind of use social media as a platform and build on that. And I can't say that I fully anticipated the level of support that I received in the last few years, but in August of 2019, I took off from Manistee, Michigan. In 6 weeks, I walked 810 miles around Lake Michigan, going counterclockwise through northern Michigan, our Upper Peninsula, down through Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, and back through Michigan in 42 days. And the biggest blessing of that first trip was that I did very little planning. I was going to camp out every night. I had loosely plotted out where I could stay and stop each night, but through the power of word of mouth and social media and other media platforms, many folks had heard about our story and what we wanted to do, and just offered somewhere to stay every night, whether it had been their home, their couch, a friend's place, or a hotel. It didn't matter. I had somewhere to stay every night that first trip. And I can say now that after 4 walks across Michigan or around Lake Michigan, now I have yet to camp out. I've never had to camp out. I've always had somewhere to stay.
Oh, nice.
And I'm very grateful for the support that I've received these last few years.
Have you always been a walker? Like, I mean, I can't imagine walking 800 something miles. That's, continuous every day. That's crazy.
So one thing I haven't really shared yet, actually, is the season of transition that I was going through. As tough as it was, I found at that time that even that walking was helping me a lot. And I was only doing maybe 8 miles at a time, which is still a good, 3 hours almost of worth of walking. But I found solitude in walking, and I guess naturally I just felt to keep going. And then, and it's ironic because even in the Marine Corps, you might see in my pictures, I'm not a man of tall stature. I'm a very short guy. But so like in the Marine Corps, I struggled with hiking because I was with guys who were a foot taller, had way longer legs, and for them it was no big deal. But for me to keep up, it's much more, takes much more effort, And so it wasn't my strong suit in the Marine Corps. So it's ironic that this is now my life. This advocacy centers around something that I really had to work at during my time in service. So yeah, during that time I was doing a lot of hiking, a lot of walking already, and I kind of just felt like I noticed that I felt a lot of peace and solitude in myself when I was doing that, because I was going through such a tough season. It's just like a part of me like didn't want to stop walking. I was like, imagine like what I would feel walking 20 some miles a day and doing it for a cause and doing it for a purpose, really.
So how many miles have you walked in total now?
Between the 4 walks, it's been 2,240 walks.
Wow.
The first one was 810 miles in 6 weeks. I did 2 shorter walks across Michigan during COVID. And then this summer, I completed my second lap around Lake Michigan, walking 900 miles in 56 days, 8 weeks.
So over 2,000 miles now.
Yeah.
And you're just getting started? Are you planning to walk more?
Each year I think to myself, I'm like, can I keep doing this, or what's next year look like? And it kind of centers around that, because like I'm in school full time right now, but also like I don't have a wife or kids, don't have a career yet. So it's like now is the time to keep doing these walks for as much as I can while I can. Yeah. And so I know that next year I want to do something. It's just a matter of like what I can work out time wise between school and graduation and stuff. And at the very least, I'll do another walk across Michigan for 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks. If I can pull it off, I might do another lap around Lake Michigan for 6 weeks, like I did the first time. In a dream world, if I could do it, I would love to do each Great Lake, but Lake Superior would take at least 4 months to do, I think.
And the ultimate goal here, Travis, is really to raise awareness on suicide, right?
Oh yeah.
And kind of on what the vets go through. And I understand that you have been really generating support for a nonprofit organization that helps veterans. So tell us about this.
Yeah. So the first year I took off, I wanted to raise money, not just raise awareness, but also raise funds for veterans that were in need. And Mission 22 is an organization that's headquartered in Oregon, but they work nationwide to help veteran brothers and sisters who are struggling with mental health and suicidal tendencies, PTSD, anxiety, um, overcome and work through their trauma and find healing. And so that help comes in different forms, whether it be professional counseling or therapy,
Mm-hmm.
or just kind of building that camaraderie that we all miss, whether it be through outdoor adventures, equine therapy, and other events nationwide. So we have ambassadors that work all around the country supporting the Mission 22 organization and supporting that cause. And they've done wonderful things these last several years and beyond to help our military community and finding healing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the community is able to help by donating to, I understand you have GoFundMe accounts linked to your walks, and they can pledge, right?
Mhm.
For every, is it for every mile that you do, or how does that
It's
work?
it's basically so every day when I'm walking, I do a post, and then during the longer walks, I might spread out the post a little bit more, so I'm not flooding everybody's timeline. But I'll do a post at least every day or every other day or so, and with each post, I'll provide links and information about Mission 22, so that folks can learn more about the organization and the programs that they have. And then the links provided for Mission 22 allow people to make donations directly to the organization, or if they want to, or if they feel led to contribute to my adventures personally, then I do have like GoFundMe and Venmo set up for that.
Mhm.
But more than anything, it's about finding support, whether it be moral support or financial support for these veteran men and women.
Mhm. Travis, what is your message to the community and to the vets, and people who may be going through tough times right now, people who may feel that they're alone or that their voices are not heard?
Hmm.
If there's anything you can say to these people, what would you say to them?
If you're somebody who's struggling, I want to remind you that you have a purpose. You're here for a reason, and you might not feel like you have much in the tank right now, but I do assure you that if you were to reach out halfway, at the very least, that there is a community of folks ready and willing to be here for you, to listen with intent. And even though we might not have all the answers all the time, we're still here to support you and love on you
Mhm.
and help you find that purpose that you're craving and yearning for right now.
Mhm.
And whatever it is that you've been through, whatever it is that you've seen, um, I empathize with you and I validate your feelings. But I want to encourage you today to speak up and to share what you're feeling, because you're not alone, and you'll never walk alone.
Wow, thank you so much, Travis. We at Just Wish Foundation, we are really truly inspired by what you do. Our founder, Mr. Jacku, has really focused his efforts in helping veterans and causes that help the veterans. We value the work that you guys do, the service that you've done for the country and the community, and you know
Thank you.
you guys deserve all the support and the love that the community can give. So
It means a
more
lot.
power to you, more power to your walks. And so we would like, in our own way, help you in these walks by making a monetary donation, in the hopes that there will be more awareness and more support, and just a feeling of that brotherhood really felt in the community, that, like you said, we are not alone. We have each other to rely on, and we salute you for all that you do. Thank you, Travis.
Right. Thank you so much, Annie. It means the world to us.
Okay, thanks.